I want to talk to you about something that is so sneaky and tricky, it gets past most of it. And it's something that really holds us back, and I want to share it with you, and that is the backfire effect. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but the backfire effect is basically if you hear something that contradicts what you believe, your core values, anything like that, what you do is you dig in, you resist it. Even though the evidence might show something different, you just struggle with this and you resist it. And it comes down to why does this happen? And it's because we have a belief about something and we've tied that belief to our identity, and then it's like feels like it's a threat to us if it gets challenged. Like, who are you to say that? How dare you? And what we do is we come up with all kinds of ways to trick ourselves to not getting stuck in where we could be growing, but we get ourselves stuck in flatlining and not making progress. And what we'll say is, that's different. That's different. You will say, this is missing the context. So why did I do that? Well, it was a different situation, or you had to be there to understand it, right? That's different. You're missing the context of it. And it also might say, well, that doesn't apply to me, or it doesn't apply to this situation. We all do this. I'm guilty of it myself. But what I try to do is catch myself. And I try to ask myself, am I falling for this trap or not? When we look at our politics, we look at our personal lives, we look at all these other areas, you'll see this all over the place. But let's look at it from a political point of view, not to be political, but to show you that both parties say they want to be fiscally responsible. If you ask a Democrat, they're going to say that. If you ask a Republican, they're going to be that. No one's going to say, I want to be fiscally irresponsible and just blow through money. But let's look at the highest level, the U.S. presidents, what they've done since Bill Clinton was in office. So let's look at it from the early 2000s forward to today. I have no interest in being political here. I'm just trying to make a point. So we're going to look first at President George Bush. He added $6.1 trillion to the national debt. And if we look at a quote that he said in 2008, it said, "We are now on a path to balance the budget by 2012. Our formula is simple. Create the conditions for economic growth, keep taxes low, and spend taxpayer dollars wisely or not at all." And if we look at President Obama, he added $8.3 trillion to our national debt. And in 2011, he said, we have to live within our means. We have to reduce our deficit, and we have to get back on a path that will allow us to pay down our debt. Then if we look at President Donald Trump, he added $8.2 trillion to our national debt. He said in 2016, we are not a rich country. We are a debtor nation. We've got to get rid of the $18 trillion in debt. I think I could do it fairly quickly. I would say over a period of 8 years. Then we have President Joe Biden, and he added $8.7 trillion to our debt. In 1984, when he was a senator, when our national debt was only $2 trillion, he said this, "I myself am outraged. I hope that all those other senators who share my outrage will also share my determination to do something about our unsustainable debt." So there you have it, 4 presidents and 2 different parties and their nearly identical behavior. They didn't just break the rule once. They did it over and over and over, where breaking the rule became the rule. And we have the exception machine, right? George W. Bush, why did he blow through the budget and have deficits? Well, of course, it was 9/11, right? That was a different time. It was necessary. Why did President Obama in 2008 go through the deficits? Well, we had the 2008 financial crisis. We had to do something, right? It was necessary. It was immediate. People were suffering. Then you have President Trump, and he faced COVID, and again, that was unprecedented. It was necessary to do something. We can't be inhumane, right? Then we have President Joe Biden, and he's doing the recovery of COVID. He's got to build infrastructure, and he's saying this is necessary. This is something we must do. Now, they always have a good reason. There always is a good reason. And it always seemed necessary. It seemed like the right thing to do. But again, we made the exception the way that we lived rather than the actual exception. What's happening here is they are comparing across rather than reflecting within. So for myself, I might look at someone else and go, well, I'm doing better than them. I'm not in as much debt as them, or I'm not as overweight as them, or I don't use as much profanity as them. You're going to come up with something and you're comparing it across. You're looking across things, you're looking at other people, and you're outraged. Like, look what they did. Look at how they ran the deficits up. Look at their language. Look at how they waste money. Look at how they're so frivolous on things, or they're all these different things we can come up when we look across. When we look across, we're seeing all the problems that other people are doing, and we're seeing the hypocrisy. But when we look at ourselves, what are we doing? Are we defending principles, or are we defending these principles selectively when it's convenient, when it's easy, when everything lines up, when there's really no cost to doing it? So that's what I want you to think about in this video. What do I really believe? What are my values? And am I living those, or am I actually living the exception? And where does this happen in your life? Because we think that it's only other people, but it's ourselves. And they believe that responsibility is important until it has a cost, until it's uncomfortable, until we have to pay a price. Then suddenly it's so easy. And I'm telling you, because I can feel this in myself when I don't want to work out, or I just want to have a cheat day, or I want to do these other things. I'm feeling them in myself, and I'm like, well, it's just an exception. It's just this one time. And it feels justified in the moment. I don't feel like a bad person. I don't feel like I'm doing crazy things. And you probably don't either. But you have to realize is that when you make the exception the rule, that becomes the rule. When you look at the federal government of the United States, our deficit spending never came back down. It never went back down to zero. The emergency spending amounts that were the exception, that were a one-time thing, that were the war against terrorism, all these different events, they became the new baseline. They became the new standard. And so now instead of spending here, we spend here, and we spend here, and we spend here, then we spend here, and it just keeps going. So you can look at the federal government and you can say, man, what's wrong with those people? But let's look at yourself, because that's where I find the real power is. This is an example, it's a microcosm, but we can look at ourselves and say, where am I doing this? How can I turn this around for myself? So I'll ask you 4 questions. The first one is, does your health matter? Secondly, how important is it to you to be financially secure? Is it important for you to be financially secure, financially independent? Number 3, do your relationships matter? Do the people around you, is that important to you, your family, your friends? Number 4, do you believe that time is very valuable, that your time is priceless and precious? Well, most people are going to say, of course I believe all those things. They're going to say yes to all 4 of them. But when we look at the numbers, we look at the data, we see our actions and our beliefs are not lining up. If we look at health first, you can see that 70% of American adults are overweight or obese. 22.9% of adults meet both aerobic and muscle strengthening guidelines. The third one here, studies show that most people who start a new diet have regained the weight within 1 to 5 years. Most of those people believe that their health matters. That's not the question. The question is, what language do they use to break that pattern? It's been a long week. I deserve this. I'll start fresh on Monday. This is a one-time thing. Those all sound familiar to you. Next, let's look at money. The total U.S. consumer credit card debt is over $1.1 trillion. That was in 2024. I'm sure by 2026 now it's gone up. Roughly 60% of Americans report living paycheck to paycheck. Median American savings rate has remained below 5% for much of the past decade. Do these people want financial security? Absolutely. Do they know they're overspending? Most do. So what's the justification? This is necessary. I'll pay it off next month. This is a one-time expense. I've had a really hard month. I deserve this. Let's look at time. The average American adult spends 4 to 5 hours per day on their smartphone. Daily social media use worldwide is approximately 2 hours and 23 minutes on average. I don't have time is one of the most common self-reported barriers to personal growth. Most people say time is their most sacred resource. I would do this if I just had more time. But the data shows something else. We have time, we're just not spending it in ways that are aligned to what we say matters most. And the justification? I need a break. I'll get to it later. After this, I'll focus on it. Finally, let's look at relationships. Roughly 40 to 50% of U.S. marriages end in divorce. Loneliness rates have reached record levels. Many people report feeling closer to online acquaintances than to people they live with. Do people value relationships? Absolutely, deeply, and universally. Ask almost anyone what matters most in your life, and they're going to say family, their friends, their connections, the people they love. And the justification for not investing in those relationships? I don't want to make it worse. Now's not the right time. I'm too tired. We'll talk about it when things calm down. Unfortunately, the conversation that gets postponed today becomes the distance you feel with that person 6 months from now. So here's what's happening. In this circle, you can see this loop. Number one, you declare a value. I believe in this. And that could relate to relationships, your health, your money, whatever it might be. But you believe in something. Then, number two, you face pressure or discomfort. It's kind of awkward or odd or, oh boy, am I going to be able to face this? Then you go to step three, you create an exception. Well, just this one time, this situation is different, it's special, it's unique. And then step four, you return to the same belief. Well, I still believe in this. I still believe I want to be financially free. I still believe that relationships and family are the most important thing. I still believe that my health is very critical to me and I treat my body like a temple. I still believe that. And yet you go through this cycle again and you do it enough and the exception becomes the norm. The exception becomes the rule. You can see how this goes and nothing really changes. When you saw that loop, I don't know if you picked out this, but your identity stays intact and your beliefs stay intact. And that's why this is such a hard trap. And once you get into it, you don't feel like you're becoming a bad person. You don't feel like you're making mistakes because you're not disconnecting from who you think you are, who you believe you are, right? If I have an exception, that doesn't mean that's who I am. So the thing that's real tricky about this is that you're making these exceptions and you're doing them at an exceptional rate and it's becoming normal. And then you get a gap between what you say and what you do. And it just keeps getting wider. That gap just keeps getting wider because you have to be consistent with what you believe and what you value if you really want to trust yourself. Otherwise, you're kind of going through this going, yeah, I say this, but wow, I do have a lot of exceptions here. Wow, I believe this, but I'm doing all these other things. And that gap is really what can hurt you. Now, if you have one exception, that's understandable. We've all had that. We all have some emergency that happens or something that comes up. I get it. That makes sense to me. If you have 10 exceptions, well, now you're becoming into a pattern here. This is more than just an exception, it's a pattern. If you have dozens and dozens of exceptions or hundreds of exceptions, now that is your operating system. That is your true way that you're living. Even though you might declare and state these other things, what you're actually doing is what is running your life and what you believe, and that's the real you. So the exception becomes the real principle you live by. Now, we've seen this with the federal deficits, those things blowing out of control, but in your own life, we do that too. And it doesn't have to be that way. But the first thing is you have to have awareness of, okay, I'm doing this. I didn't even realize I was making all these exceptions. And then you need to take a different action. I want to leave you with something that is helpful and useful because this is such a widespread issue and it gets so embedded in what we do and how we act. We don't even see it. It's like a fish not even seeing water. We have all these exceptions and we don't even realize it. So for you, what I want you to do is think about what are my intentions and what are the principles I want to live by. So those principles and intentions could be kindness. It could be building yourself up to your best self. It could be helping others, becoming independent, whatever it might be. But your intentions and your principles, ask yourself this question. Is this aligned or is it justified? So when you come up with something and you're not sure which way to go and you're thinking about having an exception, what are you telling yourself? Are you saying, well, this is an exception, this is justified? Do you negotiate with yourself? Do you settle? What I'm recommending you do is ask the simple question. Is this aligned or is it justified? If it's aligned with you, if it's aligned with your intentions, it's aligned with your principles, go for it. If it is something that you're justifying, it's probably not in your best interest. It's not matching up to your values and your principles. And it's going to be one of those exceptions that could turn into the rule. One thing I want to leave you with is my mentor, Jim Cathcart, is famous for this quote, and it's something that I really have tried to take to heart. How would the person I'd like to be do the thing I'm about to do? And that sounds simple and straightforward, but that can be something that can help guide you. And then if you pair it up with that other question that I came up with is this aligned or is it justified? And you put those two together, you have a really powerful, simple guidance that can help you when you get stuck or when you get in a situation where you're wondering, which way should I go? This will help you. If you have any questions or you want more tips and advice on this, send me an email at brian@infinityshiftssystem.com and I'll get back to you. I'll respond to all these individually. Those of you who do write comments on this video, I do appreciate that too. If you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. I try to put out content that is useful and practical to you. And I really appreciate you being here. Hopefully you got something out of this. And I'll see you on the next video.